So this new sultai commander is actually really good. So a lot of different commanders that we look into in card review here on this YouTube channel are usually kinda mid and high power, so to say. Like even the weaker ones deserves their own showcase as well, I think. But this commander is actually quite good. So for 1 blue, 1 green, 1 black and 1 generic, a total of 4 mana, you get a legendary artifact creature mutant 2/4. When the master transcendent enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters. Rad counters are basically milling and making people lose life. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if you have any rad counters, mill that many cards. For each non-land card milled this way, you lose 1 life and a rad counter. So eventually you will lose your radiation, so to say. But then we get to this commander's next ability. Tap him, put target creature card in a graveyard that was milled this turn onto the battlefield under your control. It's a green mutant with base power and toughness 3/3. This suddenly makes this commander into a very interesting reanimator commander that can reanimate things from your own graveyard but also from your opponent's graveyards. Now first thing first, some rules. We have to talk about Entomb and Surveil. Both of these effects are putting cards from your library into your graveyard, but they won't work with this commander because he specifically names mill. Mill has kind of become a keyword. But what you can do here, guys, is cast Vamp Tutor in response to the radiation. You see, when this guy comes into play, put 2 rad counters on target players. You're obviously going to target yourself, because don't mill your opponents. Really don't. People are playing Underworld Breach, so don't mill your opponents. But we're going to mill ourselves. And in response to that, we're casting Vamp Tutor, putting, let's go, a big stompy cool creature on top of the library, like Razaketh, or something of the sort. Villis, also a big, stompy, powerful, I win the game creature. And then you have the radiation trigger, put the Villis, Razaketh or whatever target you want to reanimate into the graveyard. It has now been milled, and you can use your commander to get it into play immediately. And that is a very efficient, very consistent, and kinda fast. You need to cast this guy, 4 mana, not impossible to reach, you just need to have 4 mana, get your commander into play, have a Vamp Tutor in your hand, and boom, you can literally have any creature from your entire deck into play. Noxus Revival and milling together with this commander is also kinda interesting. So I guess we need to talk about Hermit Druid. Now Hermit Druid is a creature that usually is being used to literally put your entire deck into your graveyard, basically milling, I think. Wait, is actually Hermit Druid milling? It doesn't actually say so. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand and all other cards reveal this way into your graveyard. I guess it doesn't work. I'm not a judge, so I actually don't know, but I don't think it works. Regardless if it works or not, Hermit Druid combo with Hermit Druid, Dread Return, Fastest Oracle is still probably quite good for this commander. But there's one other card we have to talk about regarding this. Intruder Alarm. So this blue enchantment reads, whenever a creature comes into play, untap all creatures. Imagine having Intruder Alarm in play and casting a Brain Freeze on yourself. Storm equals a lot. Let's say you're milling 30 cards. After milling, you can activate your commander to bring a creature from your graveyard into play that was milled this way this turn. This is gonna trigger Intruder Alarm to untap your commander so you can bring the next creature that you milled into play. You've literally been capable of putting every single creature card milled this turn into play, regardless whenever they are milled basically. You can target one of your opponents with a mill effect, a huge mill effect, you could think of anyone you want to think of, and then just put all creature cards that they are milling directly into play under your control and keeping your commander untapped so you can do it the next turn as well if you're able to mill people more. And suddenly you can play this very big stompy control deck that is putting like stacksy, stompy creatures into play. If you are able to self-mill a lot and have a very high density of stacksy, stompy creatures, you could be tricking into play really big creatures. Now, I want to emphasize that they are going to come into play as 3/3s and not like 6/6 and 7/7s and such, but they still keep their cool abilities. So if you have some really cool stacksy effects that are usually very expensive, you get them for free here. But there is another card we just have to talk about as well. Food Chain. With Food Chain, you can exile a creature to gain mana +1 of any color. Use this mana to cast only creature spells. And there is a basic combination where you have infinite mana that you can only use into creatures. Now, he has an ETB effect. Whenever the Master Transcendent enters the battlefield, target player gets 2 rad counters. So if you're able to infinitely cast the Master Transcendent, then you're able to put infinite rad counters on your opponents. And once they have infinite rad counters, you just pass the turn cycle and they will die to infinite radiation. And I really like that, because now we finally have a sultai Food Chain commander with a good ability in the command zone. The other sultai Food Chain commanders currently, more or less, are a little bit mediocre. They aren't really doing something great besides winning the game with Food Chain. This guy is winning the game with Food Chain in an equal manner. Also, I want to point out that you don't need anything from your deck to win the game with this guy. So if you're casting, let's say, Tainted Pact or Demonic Consultation, and you're exiling your entire library from the game, still getting your Food Chain, also exiling the Food Chain creatures in the process, casting Food Chain, generating that infinite Food Chain mana, then casting your commander infinitely, we don't care one bit if our library is gone, we are still applying infinite rad tokens to our opponents and winning the match. So I can really see this commander putting together a lot of different options. In Sultai, you still have the fastest consult, you can play Necropotence, well, I guess you could play Ad Nauseam. You can still not play the Ad Nauseam and go for those very stompy, stacksy creatures, maybe play Intruder Alarm, and maybe play a lot of different self-mill effects to basically fuel your board state with very big creatures. Or once again, CMC big and impactful ability big, but not power toughness big. And all of that at the same time having access to Food Chain, which is a very good combo, by the way. The only problem with Food Chain is that the Food Chain commanders are usually pretty bad. But this is a good commander on its own, like this is something you kinda wanna cast and utilize during the match, and still cool to have access to that Food Chain finisher. And hey, if one of your opponents are milling themselves, which they kinda do, you can steal things with this guy. Imagine someone milling a Dockside Extortionist and you go, activate my commander, take your Dockside, generate the treasures, nice. This could be a really fun commander to actually play. And because you are also utilizing your opponents in various ways, your games could become different. A lot of cEDH games are kind of the same. You're playing the same deck, your deck is doing the same thing over and over again, and it can be a little bit boring, and that's why you're often changing commander and playing something different for just a new kind of experience. But with this kind of commander, with different kinds of opponents, you're getting different experiences and different matchups depending on what your opponents are doing. And that is fun. So I have to say that, once again, I really like this commander. So as a finalized review, I think he's awesome. I'm going to play him myself. I'm definitely going to build this, maybe even make a better deck tech video. This is just a card review, a first peek, but I think I could theoretically make a good deck out of this. A sultai Food Chain, kinda grindy deck that would be, and probably even play this in some of my gameplay, so to say. Regardless, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed the show. Lots of cards have been spoiled, so more card reviews are coming up. Until then, take care guys!